Hey everyone, John from Nintendo Life here, and if there's one thing I like, it is growth. And Alex Olney is here to discuss growth with me. Hello, Alex Olney.
I've been growing my entire life.
I'm growing right now. We're all growing. Our fingernails are slowly growing, our hair is slowly growing, and Nintendo Switch Online is slowly growing. Not only have they added Banjo-Kazooie today, which is a pretty big deal, they have also done something to address the emulation issues somewhat. So Oatmeal Dome, who is a very prominent data miner, has gone back into Ocarina of Time's Water Temple room, the infamous one where you fight Shadow Link, and in previous versions of this emulator, the water looked very weird, there was no fog, and the whole effect and atmosphere of that room was pretty much diminished. But now, Nintendo have done one thing to help address the issue, where the water now actually reflects, which is important because it shows Shadow Link in the water when you run past him, which it wouldn't do in previous versions. So they are addressing some problems with this emulator, which is great. They're not all addressed, but it is great to see that they are slowly starting to solve some of these issues.
Yeah, it's not like, all of a sudden, it's the definitive way to play Ocarina of Time or anything like that. And, no doubt there are still myriad issues, things like fog and things like that, where it's just not quite cutting the mustard properly. I mean, it's fine. Most people have probably played it and not even noticed, but the water thing was kind of important, and it's really good to see that they fixed that. But the more important thing is that this is indicative of something much bigger. The Nintendo are either, and I do want to stress either, listening to the fans, or much more likely, they were aware of the situation before it even went out, and they are slowly trying to fix it. Maybe they wanted to release it within a certain time frame, and so they didn't, they didn't delay it so that they could fix everything. They just wanted to put it out there because it was quote-unquote good enough. We'll probably never know, but even so, the good news is that this is good news.
Yes, it is good news. I think there are some misconceptions that have been going around about this emulator in general. A lot of people think every game is just borked. And that isn't really the case. Some games are fine. Maybe there are minor issues in, Star Fox 64, but for the most part, that is the best way to play this game officially. Whereas Ocarina of Time has always been missing fog, and some areas do just look strange. The Shadow Link room looks like a void now. Usually it's this atmospheric dome of fog and reflective water, but it was just a void, where you can see the edges of the water, and it looked really weird. And even the Kokiri Forest looked odd. The fog effects just weren't quite right. So there definitely are issues from game to game, but for the most part, this emulator does have its strengths, specifically over previous official Nintendo emulators.
Yeah, I mean, there's no dark filter for one thing, which is a big blooming deal, frankly. And yeah, I've been, sort of dabbling in and out of it, and I mean, we could discuss pricing again, but I think we've done that enough. We'll just talk about the product as it is, hopefully. Don't bring it up in the comments. I know what you like. But for what it is, as it stands, I'm actually really enjoying it. And I've been playing Banjo. I haven't played masses just yet. It was pretty much the first thing I did when I woke up, because I have a problem. But even so, I've not noticed anything. In fact, I've noticed some things that other emulators struggle with that are completely fine here. And it may well be that, other emulators have been updated and they're fine now, but I always remember that the pause screen in Banjo-Kazooie, all the emulators that I remember using in the past would have issues with showing that screen. It would always be a black screen in the background. It couldn't take that quote-unquote screenshot within the game in order to make the background actually work as intended. And it works fine here. Yeah, it's low res, but hey, the N64 was low res.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's great to hear that new games are doing well. But there are issues still. Paper Mario was one game where if you hit a random tree, the game would just freeze. The entire app would close. And that is still the case. They haven't fixed that yet.
It is certainly interesting to see, sort of these newer games and how they're coming out, how they're performing and things like that within the space. Because do we know whether they're using a catch-all emulator for this, or if they're using individual games?
So those who have analysed and data mined it are pretty certain that it is just it's a fit-all emulator. So in the past on Wii, they would basically go in and inject every ROM individually to make sure they run as well as they can. Whereas this one, it pretty much is just one emulator for every game.
Which is bold, frankly.
Yeah.
Because the N64 is a bit of a tricky puppy to emulate. Just something to do with the way that it handles logic or something like that. I really don't know. I am not qualified enough to know the actual technical details of that, but, it's not exactly a secret that the N64 is a bit of a dog to emulate.
I mean, emulators have existed basically since the system was released. And slowly over time, they've got more and more refined, but you still will find problems, even in the most updated N64 emulator. And obviously, you should expect something great from Nintendo themselves, and it's good to see they're slowly getting there. But yeah, obviously, it's not quite there yet, but they have just announced that Majora's Mask is launching next month. So I'm very happy that they're addressing some of the issues in Ocarina now, because Majora makes big use of fog, and if they can get that right for launch, that would be great, because if there are issues there, that's going to greatly diminish all the atmosphere in that game.
Yeah, that game has atmosphere up the wazoo. It's like part of the reason I think it's so celebrated is that Ocarina of Time, with things like the Water Temple, it took the limitations of the N64 and it used it to its advantage with things like, as I said, the Water Temple room, using the fog, which was initially used to reduce draw distance, and actually make it something that's actually a feature. But Majora's Mask took that to an entire new level, and I think that's part of the reason that it's so memorable. Because it really managed to get it seemed to squeeze so much out of the N64, which, at the time was still a potent unit, but, it was definitely showing its age.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll see, right off the bat. The game starts off with that cutscene of Link riding on Epona, and if the fog is wrong there, people are going to know instantly that there's some kind of problem going on there. But yeah, they are listening, so that's great to see. But there's still these are baby steps though. That's the problem right now, is there are still problems. Fog being the biggest one. So if they can fix that by next month, and hopefully they do it before next month, but if they can fix it by Majora's Mask's launch, then I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I'm going to be over the moon. That wasn't even intentional.
But for now, we have Banjo, and it sounds like Banjo's running very well, so that's great.
Yeah, I've just double-checked, actually, during this chat that we've been having, and Banjo appears to be, I can't even see any issues with fog so far. I've not got to things like Mad Monster Mansion just yet, and that's going to be a much better indicator, because that uses a lot more of things like fog. But, like the intro cutscene uses fog, and it seems to be working fine. May well be that it's, quote, a different method of producing fog, so it wouldn't have been an issue even on the last version, but we just don't know.
I am quite liking this release schedule. It was a bit daunting at first when we got our first game almost 2 months after the service came out. But they're doing a thing now where they're announcing the next game, like a month in advance. And I don't love the 1 per month drip feed, but I do like that they're at least being transparent. Like Banjo comes out, they say Majora's Mask is coming next. I hope they keep doing that. Hopefully we start to get some NES and Super Nintendo games as well, because they did confirm that more are coming, but they haven't updated that service since, I want to say, like, July of last year?
Yeah, it's been a blooming long time. I don't even think we've had, like, any kind of, like, incremental update in regards to things like, stability, for lack of a better term. So, yeah, I'd love to see some more. There's still so many SNES games they could put on there, and NES games as well. But, it just seems that at the moment, they're just releasing Jelly Boy.
Yep, been playing Jelly Boy since July. Jelly Boy.
I mean, that's all I've done.
Alright, well, I think that's probably about it for now, but it is good to see that they are remedying the situation somewhat. Hopefully it continues to grow as more releases come. So let us know all your thoughts on the official Nintendo emulator. Are you more pleased with this now that they're trying to address this, or is it still not good enough for you to jump in for the subscription fee? And of course, get that subscribe button, and look, it reflects now. You can see your face. Smile. And we'll see you next time, everyone. Bye.
I'm Banjo. Whoa!